Hi, and welcome to another podcast with Hanaz Writers Limited. My name's Charlotte, and I'm a Year 2 teacher. I've had experience working in a nursery school for children aged 0 to 4 years old. And if you haven't heard any of these podcasts before, then check out Hanaz Writers' YouTube and Spotify channels. You can find all the podcasts that I've been doing on there. So in today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about why you should be aware of different styles of writing. So styles of writing. Just before I begin, first I'm going to talk about what I mean when I say a style of writing. So in this case, what I mean is the way that something is written. For example, a novel is not written in the same way as, say, a haiku poem. The structure of a novel may be that it has 10,000 plus words in it. So the sentences can be long or short. They can have as much or as little description as the author wants them to have. And the theme of the novel or what the book is about can be about anything, but it must follow the structure and tell a story. So it has a beginning to the story, a middle, and an end. Now, compare that to a haiku poem, and the structure of a haiku poem is very different. It's literally 3 lines long. The first line has words that make up 5 syllables. The second line has words that make up 7 syllables. And then the last line has words, again, make up 5 syllables. So a novel versus a haiku, they are very different to each other, and they have very different structures and different rules that they follow. If they didn't follow these rules, then they would not be a novel, they wouldn't be a haiku, or they would be something else. In school, the main styles of writing that we get students to look at and to analyze, especially as they move up through the school years, so when they're in secondary school, we mainly look at novels, books, poems, script writing as well. So we might look at how plays are constructed and theatre shows and things like that. In primary school, we try to look at all the different ways that information can be shared with others. And this can be through leaflets, posters, letters, diary entries, newsletter articles, and so on. And then each of these styles of writing have a meaning and a purpose to their content, but they are all very different to each other. They look different to each other. They have different ways of showing information. And they're just very different styles of writing. So let's take, for example, a poster. This gives readers information about an event that will happen soon. For example, it could be a play that's happening, a fun fair, a circus, an event, a concert. It's sharing the ideas with the readers and telling them this information. And the poster has to have certain bits to it. It has to have the date when the concert or the event is happening. It's got to have a list of things that are happening on that day. So if it's a fun fair, maybe they have a circus in the fun fair, they have Ferris wheels, they'll have fun games, roller coaster rides, merry-go-round, and so on. But on the poster, it would list these things. Or they'd show them in a certain way with images, and they'd have just the word like fun fair, and then they put the date. So they'll say fun fair, Saturday the 16th of July, 2024. So it's from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. basically. So you know time and what time to be there. And then around it will have pictures of roller coasters and fun fairs, merry-go-rounds, maybe a circus, picture of a tent. And then it'll just have words like circus, roller coasters, candy floss, bubblegum, popcorn, etc. And then you kind of, these things will be there at this fun fair, and it's a fun place to go, and it'll be nice and fun to visit, and what time, and so on. Now the poster is gets stuck to a wall, and it stays there for a while. The other type of thing that can be shown to people and given to people is a leaflet. Again, this is a smaller piece of paper, and it's not stuck to anything. So people usually hand out these leaflets to you. And again, it's got similar information on it, especially if it's about an event or the same event. So people make posters and leaflets at the same time for the same, but then the leaflets are smaller. They're like oh no, not A1, maybe A4 or A5 size. Yeah, A5, I think. And then you can take them with you, carry them around, fold them, put them in your pocket. And if you ever need to just remind yourself, you look at the leaflet and say, oh yeah, in this day, oh yeah, it's going to be there. And then you could show that leaflet to someone else and then they can come as well. Yeah, again, it's just a different way of sharing information with others. We take those two examples and compare it to, say, a letter. Now, letters can be formal letters, they can be informal letters. Again, it's a very different style of writing. It's a formal letter. It might come from the government, it might come from a business company, lawyers, and so on. And they usually start, if it's a formal letter, they'll start with "Dear Sir, Dear Madam," or "Dear whoever it concerns," and it gives a particular or a certain type of information. If it's from a doctor, it will put information about the person's health, their appointments, medical needs, and so on. If it's from, say, a lawyer, then it will have information concerning matters of the law, and it will tell the person if they are following those rules or not. Usually, if it's from a lawyer, then they're probably not following a certain rule, or they have some legal they need to sign, or there's something that's happened and they need to legally know about it. And now to informal letters, which could be from friends and family, and it might start with a hi and say the person's name. For example, "Hi John," or "Hey John," or "How are you, John?" and so on. And these types of informal letters just give information about the person's life, how they're doing, and then it might have rhetorical questions in there, or just questions asking the reader personal questions like, "How have you been going? We've been up to, are you free next weekend if you want to meet and catch up?" And then they might include a picture of their friends and family. It sounds very friendly. The letter's nice and it's very for you, because it might include things that you've experienced with your friend. Like, "Oh yeah, remember that time when we went to the beach and we saw a dolphin in the water?" And then take you back to that memory. There's a very different letter to say if it was from the doctor or from a lawyer. Letters are friendly. It's as if your friend is there talking to you, basically. And it's a very different style of writing. It's a very different tone to the writing as well. Usually I find that you have a letter from the doctor or a bank or the government or the lawyer or dentist. It's very formal and it feels very serious. The tone of the letter isn't very friendly sometimes. They might use big words or words that you're not used to. So you might have to, about what does that mean? Or look up in the dictionary and say, oh, what does this word mean? It might be a legal term and you have to look it up. Might be a doctor term as well. It might be a medical health term. And yeah, get to look it up in the dictionary just to find out what it means and what are they actually trying to get across to you. Other types of styles of writing include diaries, journal entries. And again, these entries are very personal. They're ways for you, the writer, to write down your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions about an event that you've experienced. It's personal to you because it's happened to you. And this may not be something that you kind of want to share with the general public or people that you don't want them to know, or, as people in general. So then usually diaries and journal entries are things that you keep personal. You write it in your book and you get your journal and you put that book aside and you never open it for anyone else to read unless you want to share it with them, of course. But it's something personal for you. So why is it important, or why do we want readers to read these styles of writing? Why they need to know? Well, as I mentioned before, each style of writing has their own purpose, their own reason for being. We look at them and we show students what they are and what they look like. And students need to know this because as they get older, especially moving from primary school to secondary school into university, then adulthood, they will encounter these kinds of letters. So they need to know what they look like and they need to know how to understand them. So we show students how to read these styles of letters or these styles of writing. and also how to write them themselves, because it's important for them to know what they look like and how to write them. It's setting them up for the future, especially for their job roles. Say a person becomes a personal assistant to someone, or they become a receptionist or a secretary. They need to know how to construct these formal letters and send them out to people. They need to know how to write certain types of emails and to get a message across for business purposes. So rather than just writing to, say, a client, bank saying, "Hey, John, I hear that you've got this much money in your account. Do you think that's going to be enough to last you for the month?" No, that I don't think they'd write a letter from a bank to a client like this. The client would get upset and they'd probably complain. So part of your job role is up to you to decide, and you look at how you're going to write your letter. How are you going to construct this very sensitive piece of information to let someone know that they don't have much money left in their bank account? Can't be rude about it, and you can't make them feel upset. So you have to write it a certain way just to get your point across. It's the same thing with letters from doctors as well. Again, you can't write anything you want. There's a particular way to write them. Of course, if you're writing an email and it's an informal email, or if you're writing a letter that's informal, then you can write it however you want. You can write it a way that's, friendly, a bit less if it's of that nature, of course. People need to know these things. Another example I'll give you, if someone wants to work in a media company, and you need to know how to set up advertisements for people, blogs and articles to go into maybe their online magazines or their newspapers. You need to change your style of writing for this. You need to know how to write how to write a newspaper article. Now, the newspaper articles are quite tricky because they're very informative, give facts, lots of evidence as well. You need to know how to write for this style. You need to know how to change your writing to suit the newspaper or suit the magazine. You need to know who the target audience is. And again, that's just another level to your writing, because you got to write something that's like a newspaper article. You got to write it for people of a certain age. Maybe they are just in their 20s. You've got to get them interested in what they're reading and not use words that are maybe too confusing or too much. If you're writing for an older group, maybe the people in their 30s to 40s, and it's for people of a certain social standing, maybe they are a higher social status than, say, 2-year-olds, then you got to change your writing style again to suit that audience, so that when they're reading it, they feel like, yeah, this makes sense, and this is a adult, not one for the kids, basically. So in school, it is a task for the teachers, because we need to teach the students about these different styles first of all. Then we need to show them and model to them how to write in that style and how we change our own writing to fit the style. Doesn't mean that you change the whole writing style. Just how just model how it looks and what the style is writing. So it could be, for newspaper articles, the writing is in columns. You could have 3 or 2 columns of writing, and your words will get down. And you can only write a certain amount of letters and words. It could be that you can only write an article with, say, words. So it's a short article, really short. So how are you going to get something across in a very short amount of words? That is tricky. Summaries is hard. So think about it yourself. Say something's happened, there was a big accident on the road, and you only got maybe 500 words to write it in. Unless it was a big deal, then they give you like a double-page spread, and then you can write maybe 1,000, 2,000 words, or however many words they give you. So you have to think about, how am I going to write this whole story? What angle am I going to come from? How am I going to describe what happened to the audience? And then write it in a way that the audience understands. A lot to think about when you think about it. Yeah. So next time you're reading a newspaper article, take a moment to think about the author. They've had to think about how to write this. They probably thought, oh, okay, how am I going to write this over 2 or 3 columns, or one small space or one column? How am I going to write it so succinct and simply, just so people can read it and their point across, basically. So next time you pick up the Evening Standard or the Metro, have a think about the writers themselves, the authors, and what a great job they're doing, really, because it's very interesting. Even I find writing summaries tricky within a certain amount of words. So good on them, good on those writers. And you guys, hashtag English creates. Okay. Back to what I was talking about. If students are reading these different styles and then they're practicing how to write them, this kind of gives them a little bit of a head start in their knowledge and their understanding of how to structure their own writing. Yes, it's fine if they're not inclined to write newspaper articles. If they're not inclined to write summaries, then maybe they are happier to write poetry. They've got a certain style that they can stick to, a certain rhythm to follow, and rhyming words, it's just their thing. If it's not poetry writing, maybe it's novel writing. They like to write long sentences with adjectives and describe things in a beautiful way using their words. And that's okay as well. It's whatever you want to do with it, really. But then they also need to know how to create a poster because they want to shorten this down. Imagine if they were going to an author writing, asked to be a celebrity author. They have to know how to put up the poster for themselves, like promoting themselves, or how to write their own short summary about their biography about themselves. Quite a lot of authors have to write a short biography about themselves, Again, that's another style of writing there. So you got to think about, what am I going to say just to tell these guys what I'm about, who I am, where do I come from? I want them to know about me. It's interesting when you think about it and the different things that you can write different ways. Those structures are necessary then in this way. And there's so many different styles of writing out there. The way that something's presented to you, you can read it and instantly recognize what kind of writing it is. It is the way it's done, it's very clever when you think about it. Like, I know this is a diary entry. Oh, it says Dear Diary. And it ends with their name. And inside is talking about their personal thoughts and feelings and their emotions. So I know that this is a diary. So when I do my diary, I can do exactly the same way. How do I know that this letter is a formal letter? Oh, it says, Dear Sir, Madam. Oh, I'm serious because they don't know who I am. So this is a very important letter. And then it goes on to tell me I need to know very important things. If it's a letter from a friend, it's like, hey, John, how's it going? Oh, okay. My friend is contacting me. Oh, wow. I haven't heard from them in ages. I wonder how they're getting on. And then you read the letter and you find out, it's a very nice way to recognize, I think, that you recognize these different styles of writing. And it's quite nice. And that is basically the whole point of the structure. So overall, I think it is important for us to read lots of different styles of writing, learn the different styles of writing and the structure and how things are written. It is very important for us to know this. Interesting if we didn't know this, if we picked up something and we didn't know it was a newsletter, or we didn't know it was a magazine article, or we didn't know it was a letter, we might get lost in translation and not really understand what's going on. But seeing examples of things and what they look like and how we can read them helps to set us up, helps us to know, helps our students as well, sets them up for their future, sets them up for the different roles that they might encounter as they go into life. They have like a clear purpose for what they are writing and why. Once they have that, once they're clear in their minds about it, then they can start writing their own and they can just get on with it, basically. So, thank you very much for listening to my podcast. Let me know what you think. Why is it important for students to read different styles of writing? Is it still relevant nowadays? And what do you think? Do you think this will all change in the future? Leave your comments below. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, then click the subscribe button below. You can hear more podcasts from with Hanaz Writers, and they are on Spotify and YouTube channels. You can also follow Hanaz Writers on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. They are the handle is @hanaz.writers. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, bye.